Hey everyone, Eric Mann here, another Message in the Bottle video series. It is Tuesday, and I'm going to make it a Tannin Tuesday. That is our topic today. But before I get to that, biodynamically, we're entering the next phase of the lunar cycle. Today is a nothing day, which is kind of weird to define in terms of like, should I or shouldn't I enjoy wine? Go ahead and enjoy wine. Just be aware that it's not a fruit day, it's not a flower day, it's not a day that's particularly necessarily beneficial. However, if you are a farmer, this is going to be a good day to start planting any little seeds and stuff like that. Of course, we're heading into winter up here at some point in the probably not too distant future. So maybe you're thinking about greenhouse or keeping your stuff indoors. But anyway, so that's what today is. We're entering the last phase of the lunar cycle. So I want to talk about tannin. This is tannin. This is actual tannin that I bought. You can put that in wine as fake tannin. What is tannin? What are tannins? A lot of people have experienced tannins. Most of us have experienced tannins. We just maybe don't know it or whatever. Tannins are chemical compounds. Funny enough, they exist in nature to make animals, especially, not want to eat whatever it is. You find tannins on peach skins. You find tannins in grapes and grape stems and stuff like that. Wood bark, all over the place. Tannins are everywhere, but their actual purpose is to make animals not. You basically understand that nature is trying to constantly propagate itself. And until the seeds of whatever it is are ready and ripe and the plant decides, okay, they can be essentially eaten and scattered in ways that we shan't talk about right now by the various animals, until they're ready, the plants don't want to be eaten. And so they have these tannins that eventually, as the fruit ripens, go away. More ripened grapes have less harsh tannin. Tannins are that very sort of bitter, astringent quality that we have. You have it after you drink tea, right? Or of course after, like, so let's talk about wine because that's why we're here, right? When people describe a dry wine, or maybe they're talking about that puckery sensation, like I said, it's an astringent thing. And what tannins do by nature, science, I'm not a scientist, I'm a humble wine merchant, but they bind to proteins. Well, your saliva is full of proteins. And so when you are having wine that has tannin in it, and we'll talk about why certain wines do and why they don't, and hopefully it's not because just this sort of stuff has been added, but if you're drinking really oaky, tannic, really cheap red wine, and we're going to get to all that in this video series as well, is why are there inexpensive, really oaky, tannic red wines? You're not going to want to find out, but you will anyway. But anyway, so getting back to it. So when you're drinking the red wine or whatever, and it's grippy, as we like to call it, maybe, if it's harsh and astringent, that's not great winemaking. But of course, sometimes because of various climatic conditions, growers had to harvest early or later or whatever, and that will depend on that. Also, what happens is, so let's go. So okay, so you're picking the grapes, right? And let's assume that you're picking them at a time that you want to be picking them. And so if they do have more tannin in them, and of course thicker skinned grapes are going to have more tannin, right? Like that's also true. You're picking it at a time when you're saying, okay, I want this level of bitterness and astringency early on in the process, because as the process goes, perhaps those things will break down. For instance, as time goes on, tannins do soften. Oxygen softens tannins. So if you're doing something where the wine is going to age and mature, perhaps you're going to put it in oak barrels, which also, if they're new oak barrels, can contribute tannin of their own. But if they're like used oak barrels where there's just a slow, gradual oxygen transfer and stuff like that, that will help mature the wine and make those tannins more approachable. If you're drinking a wine where it's like, that's not great. If you're drinking a wine where it's soft, subtle grippiness, that's a lot better. Most white wines, except for, of course, skin contact wines we talked about in a previous video, they're probably not going to have a lot of tannin. But of course, again, it's the contact and the maceration when those the juice is in contact with not only skins but potentially pits, which will have tannin. Stems, if some people like to do whole cluster fermentation, the stems are going to give you tannin, and that's hopefully all going to be on purpose, right? The winemaker knows what they're doing so that that particular wine will be approachable tannically, if you will, when you're ready to drink it. So something to bear in mind. Again, we'll go over, barrel aging and the benefits and stuff like that in a future video, but I just want to talk about when people come in and describe, hey, I really like a grippy wine that's tannin, or a dry wine, then I try to suss out, do you mean dry like it's drying because of that astringency, the chemical reaction of those proteins interacting with the tannin? Is that what you mean? Or is it just that you don't want a sweet wine, which is fine too? But it's, again, we're trying to, this video series is really trying to bring the consumer to the same level playing field as the merchant so that you can buy the bottle you want. So there is just a brief introduction on tannin and why it may or may not be something that you particularly like in wine. And if it is or isn't, it's, again, something to talk to your wine merchant about. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you next time.